Welcome to the Team Engagement Podcast, where leaders of teams share their insights. We discuss 6 questions in 9 minutes because leaders know how to be concise. We'll go ahead and get started with today's guest. Our first question, in a few sentences, tell us who you are and what you do.
Hey, Sean. My name's Kristin Arnold, and I am the president of Quality Process Consultants Incorporated here in Scottsdale, Arizona. And I am primarily a meeting facilitator for those meetings you can't afford to screw up. I call them high stakes meetings. And I train other people to do what I do. I speak on teamwork and collaboration, critical thinking. And I am probably one of the world's foremost experts on moderating panels. Mm-hmm. There you go.
Great space to be, very much needed. So great space. Well, question number 2, what's the best thing about working with a team?
You know, I like working with a team because you get a better result. We are all smart people and we think we know it all, but we don't. And especially in today's world, and I call it the VUCA world. Well, not just me, but actually it got started in the Army. We were doing some work very early on with the Afghanistani forces that were being deployed. And they realized that their role was more than just defense. They had to be integrated in with the community. And so they had to be making better decisions. And we had to talk about critical thinking skills. And I think that we all individually are pretty smart, but together we're even smarter. And when you're working in a volatile, uncertain, chaotic world, ambiguous world, that's VUCA, we can't just rely on our own brilliance. That's why I like teams.
I could not agree more. It is such a nice ability, in my view, to be able to be with a team and to bounce ideas and just make everybody better. I love that perspective. So thank you for sharing that. Question number 3, I hear from other leaders of teams that it can be a challenge to get team members engaged. Tell me your thoughts on that.
Well, a couple of thoughts. First, I think engagement comes in a lot of forms. I don't think engagement is just that you speak at meetings. I think engagement can come in the form of doing homework or research in preparation for when the team comes together, or it might be contributing a special skill or talent that might not be obvious to other team members. So I would probably ask yourself, what's your definition of engagement? Introverts and extroverts have different definitions. People who are more people-oriented versus task-oriented, sometimes just being the glue that holds the team together in the social aspect is just as important as the person who gets stuff done. So I would question engagement first. The other thing is that my experience, Sean, is I'm not exactly sure everybody knows what it is to be on a high-performing team. I'm not sure. We believe that we've been teaching our kids good team skills. And sometimes in the school environment, we teach them how to avoid, accommodate, compete, compromise. We haven't really taught them very well how to collaborate, how to achieve that win-win, how to really encourage people to be their best self when they show up at the team. And I think that there's 3 different things that affect our ability to show up. Number 1, well, other than the fact that you might not even know what a high-performing team is that first, I think your upbringing affects how you approach teamwork. If you think about the family unit, a family unit is a team. So you learn good things from your mom and dad and your siblings and your nieces and nephews. And so those things help and hinder you. Number 2, I think, and this is going to be kind of an interesting perspective. Sean, if you think about your first paid job, right? And you're going to ask a question on that one later too. If you think about your first paid job, first 1 or 2, not the babysitting or the mowing the grass, but your first paid job, the elements of teamwork that you learned there carry forward So we're conditioned to believe certain things about teamwork and being a good team player and being a good team leader. So the conditioning, so it's upbringing, conditioning, and then lastly, your current condition. The environment that you're working in right now might support teamwork. It might not support teamwork. It might say it supports teamwork, and yet the behaviors don't support teamwork. So I think those three things really affect. So you got to look in the mirror and ask yourself, what am I doing to support teamwork or hinder teamwork?
Mm-hmm. Well, you sure packed in some great advice and guidelines for all of us to remember when we're working in teams, as well as the self-reflection about, well, what is it? What is my background? What, that first job and family and so forth? What is it that's made me me? And how does that contribute to the team? And recognizing that my experience, of course, is going to be completely different than my teammate over here, and that they're going to bring a different perspective. I loved what you shared. Thank you for sharing that. That was great information.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Question number 4, what other piece of advice would you give to leaders of teams?
So I love using a very simplistic model. Not that it explains everything, but I love using this model about where is your focus? Is your focus on just getting the results? Is your focus on the process, the way that you're achieving the results, or is your focus just on relationship? And I find that teams, it's much like a three-legged tripod. You got to have it all in balance. And as a leader, I can't just focus on results. I can't just focus on process. I can't just focus on the relationships, or otherwise I'm kind of unbalanced. And so my role is to figure out, what does my team need from me right now? Or what do they need from each other? Is it that they need clear direction and focus on what it is that the job is that we need to do? Is it that we need some process guidance about who's going to do what, and what's the timing, and how are we going to do that? Or do we need to focus on the trust piece, the relationships, the fun aspect? I mean, we spend more time at work than we do at home. Like, let's have a good environment. And it doesn't have to be fun, like ha ha ha, but just a good, positive, supportive, reinforcing, culturally appropriate environment for that organization.
Again, some great pieces of advice. Very well said. Question number 5, what other successful leaders of teams, such as yourself, would you like to recognize that have had a positive influence in your life?
You know, I was struggling with this question, Sean, because there's so many people in the world. So you think meta, these, larger than life issues. And then you think about the people that you've encountered who have been mentors and great team leaders, role models for you. And then there are the people who you just randomly run into and you go, oh my gosh, there is somebody that I really admire. And then, there's the people that we don't even think about in this question, which are your family and your friends who are leading you in many, many different ways. So that was going to be more than 9 minutes. So I thought I would give you like my big picture kind of thing. But I think one of my favorite leaders, just from an anecdotal perspective, I never really worked very much with him. It's a guy named John Phelps, and he used to be in the Army, SES, and I got to know him as the CEO of the Arizona State Bar. I did a little bit of work for him. He's just a great guy, very articulate, very compassionate. He knows how to be focused. He knows how to appreciate people, respond. Just a good human being that you admire.
He sounds like a great individual, so thank you for recognizing him. Well, last question, and you know what it is. You mentioned
I do.
Tell me about your first job.
So my first job was, my first paycheck job was at a department store. and it was Bullocks Wilshire in Woodland Hills, California. And I was 16 years old, finally was able to like get a car and go to work to pay for the car. And I was a floater. So at 16 years old, you're not expected to do anything. You're just expected to like float from department to department and fill in when people need to go to lunch or on a break or something. And I landed in the gift in China section more frequently, and I just got fascinated with it. And so I'd ask generally they were older ladies who were the stalwarts in that department. And I would just be curious, and I would ask them, like, tell me. And they're looking at me like, you're a 16-year-old, who cares about China and silver? Like, what do you care? And I'm like, I'm curious. And so I ended up being assigned to that department. And by the time I left and went off to college, I was one of, not the top salesperson, because I didn't work there full time, but I certainly knew my stuff and developed an appreciation for China and crystal and silver.
I love that you let your curiosity drive that. I'm always fascinated by people who let their curiosities drive interest and asking good questions and learning more. I love that. Thank you.
That's kind of my MO. But the other piece of that is that I generally do what others don't want to do. So there was a challenge, like, no, floaters, they don't care about this stuff. And when you put a challenge to me like that, baby, I am going to prove you wrong.
I love it. I love it. I love how you take on the challenge, that road less taken. So that's great.
You zig, I'll zag.
Kristin, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. How can people find you?
You can find me at www.kristinarnold.com.
Great. This is Sean Richards with the Team Engagement Podcast, where leaders of teams share their insights. For more ideas, you can find us on LinkedIn by searching Blue Sky Business Consulting. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day.
Thanks.